1874, the podcast with Dan Bardell and Greg Evans.
You doing, honestly? Hello, welcome to 1874 with Dan Bardell and the clown Greg Evans. We're doing the podcast a day early because we thought we'd do this podcast as a post-match reaction show. As I said, we'd be doing that on Sundays quite frequently, as there's no point in doing content's sake for content's sake. I am joined, as I say, by the Athletics resident clown Greg Evans. Greg, how are you?
I'm all right. Sorry, I was just trying to get us started. I know many people have been waiting to see your lovely face, so I thought a little bit of light humour might finally get us initialised, and it's worked, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if Twitter's anything to go by, light humour is exactly what the Villa fan base wants right now. Usual meltdown because Aston Villa have lost a football match. Greg wasn't brilliant. I actually think the first 45 Villa weren't as bad as people were making out, but if you look across the whole 90, they've lost 3-0. They probably could have shipped 6 or 7, if I'm being perfectly honest. Could have scored a couple as well, but overall they're a little bit too open, aren't they, Villa? And for the second game away from home against top 6, top 7 opposition, Villa have been opened up early.
Yeah, I mean, look, to lose 3-0 is obviously going to be disappointing, and Liverpool had plenty of other chances as well. And, on another day, it could have been even heavier. Admittedly, Villa did have some of their own chances, which they missed, and it felt like but it didn't feel like it was one of those games where they missed chances and deserved to get something out of it. They were well beaten today. And yeah, look, it's disappointing. The hope at the start of this season was that Villa could have given these better teams, the teams that finished above them last season, a bit more of a run for their money, and it just hasn't been the case yet. But again, after the Newcastle defeat, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not getting too down about it and fearful for Villa's overall season, because pretty much what has happened this season has happened. Pretty much what we expected to happen this season has happened. Villa have lost to Newcastle and Liverpool away from home, which, let's be honest, more people than not would have thought that was going to happen. And then the games that Villa were supposed to have won, or at least were expected to win, they have done convincingly. So it's an average start, isn't it? And okay, we're talking on the back of a defeat now, and it's disappointing. But overall, the start's been average. It hasn't been bad.
Yeah, I'm happy the international breaks come, actually. Usually you feel the international break comes at a bad time for Villa. I actually feel on this occasion I'm reasonably pleased that it's come round now. Go back to the drawing board. I'm sure Emery will be watching footage after footage and just try and get ourselves back. I've just had a look at our next games. It's a decent run of games. That the next 5 or 6 now, toughest game probably Chelsea away, and we saw what happened yesterday with Forest. People can go there and get results. I do think Liverpool away and Newcastle away are 2 of the harder games that you can have in the Premier League. And just quickly, before I forget again, because Greg was being a clown in the introduction, I forgot to have a word for our sponsors, NordVPN. You can get an exclusive deal if you go to 1874.io/NordVPN. You'll get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, and you'll get 4 months for free as well. And it's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Greg, the first goal, then, look, it's come early again. There was a few similarities in this game to the Newcastle game, if we're being perfectly honest. The high line being a little bit questionable, conceding off a set piece, conceding early, a centre-back going off injured. So, that first half, there was a few parallels in that Newcastle game. Trent's corners have evaded everyone, and it's a hell of a finish from Szoboszlai, actually. It's a really, really good finish on his left foot, Emi Martinez. Absolutely no chance. But why are we getting off to a bad start again, Greg?
Yeah, and look, I'm well qualified to talk about this because I cover both Aston Villa and Liverpool now, and it's Liverpool have started their last couple of games really poorly. So there was an opportunity for Villa to get straight at them and cause some problems and put the nerves into them a little bit, because against Newcastle, in the Liverpool against Newcastle, and Liverpool against Bournemouth, they started really, really poorly and just looked a little bit shaky and wobbly, and that has been a little bit of a theme for Liverpool over a couple of seasons. Really, they tend to start quite slow and build and get into games. So Villa's start was, it was awful. It was horrendous. Emery will be looking back probably now, building up video clips of it, of how bad that start was and how Villa must avoid that in the future. So Villa took the kick off. they kept possession for maybe 20, 25 seconds. It might have been a little bit less, and then they lost possession. Liverpool then started to build up from the back. Luka Dean lost the ball and put it out of play. Then a few seconds later, Diaby lost possession, and then leading up to the goal, Pau Torres lost possession, was caught trying to play out from the back. So there was 3 or 4 really big mistakes early in the first 2 minutes, and then the next mistake was at the corner that was caused from Torres being intercepted in his own box. It evaded every single player. There was not a first contact there, which Villa were so desperate to try and do. And again, without highlighting the fact that Villa missed Tyrone Mings, because we know this anyway, but when Mings is playing, Villa win more of those first contacts than when he's not, and they miss him at set pieces. Villa were dreadful from set pieces today. Could have conceded 3 goals and did concede 2 goals. So yeah, so many bad mistakes in those early few minutes, and that just gave Liverpool the hope and the belief that, look, if they can start well, they can go on and see out the game, which they did. So yeah, very, very disappointing in those opening first few minutes. And look, if you go a goal down at Anfield, it's always going to be difficult to get back, and Villa found that.
Yeah, these early goals in those 2 games that we've been talking about, that's where everything you've worked on during the week just goes out the window, because you haven't worked on going down 1-0 in the first 5 minutes. That's just not something that you will have planned for. And
it's sloppy as well.
Yeah,
it's really sloppy. And I'm convinced Emery will be looking back at those first 2 minutes and highlighting all those individual mistakes, giving the ball away just way too easy. Pau Torres has come under a bit of criticism.
He's getting annihilated in the comments, which I think is a bit unfair. It's early days.
It's early days. I mean, he was a world beater last week, wasn't he? He went by according to supporters when he was ripping defences apart with his passing. So, look, you can't judge a player on one game. It hasn't been a great start for him. The high line's been a bit of an issue for Villa, but let's give the guy a little bit more time before we start to properly judge him.
Yeah, and then the second goal was an own goal, but in all honesty, it did feel... Look, as much as I didn't think we were that bad in the first half, because I think we did create a couple of chances on the break, and I thought Diaby in particular looked really lively. I think he's one of the positives from today still. He still looks a hell of a player. But it did feel like Liverpool were going to score every time they came forward. Realistically, and they probably should have scored a couple, more in the first half. Matip, I remember missing a header. I think Darwin Núñez hit the bar as well. The second goal, though, it's frustrating because you get away with it off the post, and then Matty Cash is just running backwards, so he can't really do anything but put it in his own net. But it's frustrating when you kind of get away with it. They hit the post, and then you still end up conceding.
Yeah, an unfortunate day for Cash, wasn't it? He got the own goal and then missed a chance a little bit later on in the game. So not after last week's highs, it'd be a bit of a low for him this week, coupled with the defeat as well. But yeah, I think the second goal, it just built into the theme that Trent Alexander-Arnold pretty much ran the whole game, didn't he? He was fantastic until he went off injured, and you can just see why he's such a threat for Liverpool going forward. And when he moves into those midfield positions, it's very easy in hindsight to say, well, why didn't Villa just stop him and put a player on him all game, or even put 2 players on him, or just build their game plan around stopping Trent? But no team really is able to do that, are they? I haven't seen any teams this season stop his attacking play. Okay, he hasn't been great defensively, but those are human individual errors. Failing to control the ball, and then being on a yellow card very early against Newcastle, but stopping him going forward, no team's able to do that. And his array of passing and the way he can unlock defences is brilliant. And it felt like he pretty much run the show. And that second goal was, I'm pretty sure it was his long ball, wasn't it, over to Salah, and then Salah crossed it, and the rest is history. It's 2-0, and Villa are 2-0 down after 19-20 minutes. They've lost Diego Carlos at this point. Not quite sure what happened. I know he was signalling for a fair few minutes before he was taken off that he had some sort of an issue, but it certainly didn't appear to be anything that was from a contact. It might have been something that he just pulled up when running back. Emery's spoken after the game and said that he hopes that it isn't as a serious one. He was certainly walking around after the game, so let's hope it's not too serious. But it did upset the balance a little bit, didn't it? And how Villa had to adjust from there, and then there were 2 goals down very quickly. They found it really hard to recover.
Yeah, we certainly can't afford to be without any defenders at the moment. They've obviously dipped into the transfer market to cover Tyrone Mings' loss. The last thing you want when the first game after the transfer window shut is another long-term injury. I think with Carlos, he's one of them players you just can't take a chance with it after the long layoff he's had. Even if he might think he could be able to continue, you don't even risk it. You just get him off the pitch because he's had such a horrific injury. And it felt like Liverpool could play on Villa's frailties and weak points in that game a little bit, all the way through, actually. But pre-game, Van Dijk was missing, Canate was missing. I really thought I'd convinced myself that Villa were going to go to Anfield and win, which is always dangerous because whatever I say, the opposite always happens. But I just thought I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get at them and make them look a bit frail and disjointed because Gomez and Matip have played together before and it's never been a brilliant partnership for Liverpool. They're okay next to Van Dijk, either of them, but if you take Van Dijk out, that centre-back pairings had problems at times, and I just felt with Alexander-Arnold marauding the way that he does as well, there should have been gaps for Villa to exploit. But other than Diaby, I didn't really feel that we did that.
Yeah, they didn't do enough, did they, Villa, going forward? And I know it's hard to say that because you have to remember how.
There he goes. What's happened there?
That's my light that's trying to make me look relatively respectable.
I mean, it's working absolute overtime, that light.
in this dark room because the sun's shining into my window, so I'm having to shut the curtains. But yeah, we go back to Villa's creativity or lack of it going forward. But it felt like they could have got at them a little bit more, but just didn't. But anyway, as I say, it's always difficult going to Anfield. I think you've got to put a bit of respect on Liverpool and their players a little bit because, look, they're now 15 games unbeaten, stretching back to the back end of last season when Klopp changed the system and started moving Alexander-Arnold into a hybrid role. Gomez and Matip, they're not the first choice defenders, but they're very adequate. And Gomez is still pretty quick. He's still a good passer of the ball, and I thought he did well today. McAllister playing in that deep line role, I thought Jones would play there, and obviously it's been a talking point of the season, the fact that they haven't been able to get a proper defensive midfielder. But McAllister, I thought was excellent and just passed the ball around well and cut out a lot of things. Actually, made some good interceptions and blocked runners and trap runners at times. And Liverpool just made it very hard for Villa, and that's what we thought. I agree with you, Dan. I felt that Villa would go there and cause a few more problems, and that's what we'd hoped that Villa would show going to there. But they just weren't quite at it, weren't quite able to get going. And yeah, I mean, the early goal just didn't help, did it? You take that early goal out, and you never know how the game unfolds. So yeah, it's always different.
Jimmy Lasainte made a point in the chat in the comments actually. But at the time, I predicted the sub would be Bailey for Carlos. What did you make of that sub? Because you're then moving a few different people around. I guess the fact that Villa they probably wanted to pull Constant into right centre back. They kind of were forced to that. But could he have bought? I can't remember if Chambers was actually.
Chambers and Longley were both on the bench.
Yeah,
so.
Could he? I mean, I can understand why he didn't bring Longley on because then you'd have had two left-footed centre backs, and I think for that game, not the time to be trying things like that. But could he brought Chambers on and kept Cash where he was? Because that was obviously part of the game plan. That was obviously something that worked really well at Burnley last week. But he's gone for Bailey and then he's moved Cash back and moved Conser across. So he's kind of moved one more player than he would have perhaps needed to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it felt like, and look, who are we to question him? He's got a lot right over his time at Villa, and tactically he tends to do the right things. And there's so many times where Villa have been 1-0 up, and tactically he's outsmarted the opponent by setting Villa up to see out the game. So certainly not going down the line saying that he doesn't know what he's doing, but it felt like he overcomplicated things a little bit on this occasion. And I mean, Chambers just look, Chambers was the obvious. Just bring him on. It's not what you want. You don't want to lose Diego Carlos. You obviously don't want to put Longley on when he doesn't know how to play for Villa because he's had a handful of 2 training sessions or whatever it is. He's not used to the Emery style, so I can totally understand why he wasn't brought on. But Chambers has been around for a fair while now, and he's been used. So if you don't bring him on in that occasion, when do you bring him on? Just
Yeah.
felt like he overcomplicated it
I
a
think it's
little
because
bit.
we were losing, so he was trying to give us a bit more impetus because we were
Yeah,
losing,
I
perhaps.
get that. I mean, and look, supporters want to see that. But I honestly believe I don't believe that there would have been any Villa fan out there if Chambers had come on and would have questioned Emery and thought, why the hell are you bringing another defender on for a defender?
Yeah, because
I
we were
think
looking frail anyway.
it's the logical sort of move. But look, fair play to him. It's a brave move in some respects. He clearly wanted to put the onus on his own team to go and play on the front foot and get a goal back. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. And Bailey, look, he came on and he struggled a little bit to start with, didn't he? And then there was a little mix up with Watkins where he probably should have shot with his right and just opened his body up and tried to shoot with his left, and the two of them just got mixed up a little bit. That felt like a good opportunity for Villa, but it's just one of those days, I think.
Yeah, but you mentioned the midfield before I wanted to talk about the substitution. You said about McAllister did have a really good game, actually. I thought he was really good as well. I think he was probably one of the best players on the pitch on the day. But again, I thought Kamara and Louise would have a stronger foothold in the game. I felt like both of them had off days. I felt like Villa in general, there was just never strung any passes together, giving the ball away cheaply, all the things that they didn't do last week. And I know it's against Burnley rather than Liverpool, but we were really good on the ball last week. Today, it just felt like I don't even think it was because of pressing or anything. It just did sloppiness. Is the word that we've mentioned a few times. I felt overall we were really sloppy today.
It was really sloppy, and that was a real theme of the game. I picked up something because I was really disappointed with Villa's build-up play, and sometimes you want to watch it. You can't just go by stats. You have to pick the patterns that are either working or not working, and then see if the stats back it up. And I just looked at Villa's passing accuracy from the defenders, and I'm just going to very briefly go through it. So you got Konza 96%. Very solid, a decent game in terms of keeping the possession. But then after that, Torres 72%, Digne 71%, Cash 74%, and Kamara 85%. Now that's pretty poor for the majority of those. When you compare Liverpool's, Trent 90%, Matic 94%, Gomez 95%, Robertson 95%, McAllister 88%, and Jones 92%. Now, their build-up play was so much smoother than Villa's. And okay, they were at home and they're comfortable and they're Liverpool and they're better than Villa, etc., etc. But on the day, they knew what they were doing. They kept hold of the ball better. They found the passes. They executed the patterns of play perfectly. Villa just struggled. They were sloppy, as you say. They gave the ball away too many times. They tried to overplay it at times in defence and it didn't quite work. And look, it was another day for the high line, not really working for Villa. And I thought that they would have learned from their mistakes at Newcastle, to be honest. And okay, it's a risk-reward situation. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you've got to be committed to it, because I still don't think Emery will change, but just felt like they probably should have learnt their lessons from Newcastle.
Yeah, Jonathan Ridgway in the comments is saying Conser had a good game. I'd actually go along with that. I think he was probably looking around the times and thinking, "Can I have some help, please, lads?"
Yeah.
I literally can't do it all on my own. And Lewis Sprigg doing my job for me, telling everyone to hit the like button. Do please hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff that we normally mention at the end. And in the second half, and again, this is like the Newcastle game. You don't want to concede in the first 15 minutes. Make sure you get the next goal and make a game of it. And we just concede a really. This was the goal that annoyed me. The third one, and people are gonna hate. People aren't gonna hate me. They're not gonna be surprised by what I'm about to say.
I know what's coming.
Honestly, it's all very well and good having good games against Hibernian, Burnley, and Everton when you've got all the time in the world. But it's these games where I just think when Luca Dean's on the pitch, he will let you down. And I've said before, there's a goal like this in every game he's on the pitch where he's just completely ball watching. He's got no idea Salah's coming in, steaming in to score that third goal. He's completely watching the ball again. Same as I think it was the second goal potentially in the Newcastle game. Might have even been it was the first goal in the Newcastle game where he's just watching the ball. He's got no idea of what's going on around him, and that completely kills the game. 3-0, the game is over. Then at 2-0, you're still always in with the shout. You can get a goal. Liverpool are virtually impeccable at home. They have been the whole time under Klopp. I can't think of many games that they've lost at Anfield. They might have even only ever lost once at Anfield under Klopp.
No, they did. The COVID year, they did lose a couple. They had a bad little run, but you're right.
When the crowd's there, they don't.
Generally, they're pretty good, aren't they?
Yeah. That third goal completely deflated me because like I say, he's very good going forward, Luca. Then don't dispute when he's got time. He's got a brilliant delivery, and he did create a lot of stuff for Villa today. Like you said to me before we came on, he was probably Villa's main creative outlet, and he does that very well. But if you're a fullback, you've got to be able to defend, and those kind of goals happen too often, and that's game over at that point for me. I know people think I'm picking on him, but he's just a real bugbear of mine now that I can probably go back. If I looked at goals that Villa have conceded with him on the pitch, you'd see that goal probably 8 or 9 times, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't dress it up nicely. It was frustrating, and he slipped over a couple of other times that allowed Liverpool in. But it just felt like he was on the back foot a lot of the time. I mean, Liverpool tried those long balls time and time again, didn't they? Right from the start, they were trying it. It was a clear tactic to expose the high line, and it worked pretty well. I feel sorry. I don't feel sorry for Dina. That's the wrong way to explain it. I don't think the high line suits his game defensively. I think he gets exposed a bit too often. But going forward, you can't knock his qualities. And again, I did think that almost everything Villa did good was through him.
No, that's fair. That is fair.
The delivery is brilliant, and Cash probably should score, shouldn't he? The header that sort of we thought
that was
gone in, and sort of Alisson just parried it out, which and it looked like it was over the line, didn't it, when you were first watching it? But yeah, I mean, look, he's got to work on the defensive side of the game, as you say. It's very important, and you can't make mistakes every couple of games. You have to be very solid, especially if Villa are going to want to kick on from where they finished last season. But I said at the start of the season, it's going to be light work playing against Palace and your Burnleys and Luton and Sheffield United and the lower ranked teams.
They're the games he's fine in. I've got no problem with him there.
And he'll be absolutely fine. But the challenge for Villa now, in general, is beating the teams above them that finished above them last year. They've had 2 chances in 2 games and they've failed miserably, conceded 8 goals. So they haven't really made much progress in that respect. But there's a long way to go, and try not to sound too defeatist.
Yeah, like I've said, the fixtures coming up now, Villa haven't really got a game like that. They've got Chelsea away coming up in the next couple, but that's not the same as going to Anfield or going to St James's Park. I would suggest. I just thought, especially in that second half, I was watching Liverpool attack that side, and I thought in a big game, Luca Dean and Pau Torres down that left side of defence is a little bit flimsy. Was the word that came into my head. I'm not slating Torres because it is early days, but it just felt a little bit lightweight. And for me, Villa's left-hand side in general, we cannot get Ramsey and Moreno back quick enough because that will transform how we attack as well on that side. The attack at the moment feels a little bit predictable because it kind of all based around getting Diaby on the ball and breaking with him in these kind of games. If you've got those two down the left, you can also put McGinn back down the right, and he offers good protection down that side. Being on the left, I don't think really does his game any favours either. So I just think Villa will be infinitely better when those two are back.
Look, it'd be great to have them available, 100%. Great to have them on the bench initially to bring them on, or then to change, to start and then switch other players and bring other players on. To have those 2 players just available is going to help because it brings so many different options and variables almost for Emery. But we weren't talking about Villa being predictable last week, were we? So
I know, but we're playing Burnley, Everton, and Hibernian.
I know, but they didn't look predictable at all, did they? The goals were shared around. The passages of play were excellent. The defending was solid, and the attacking movements were exciting. There wasn't one. It wasn't just give it to Diaby and run. It was
no. But in a game like that, it's felt like that game and Newcastle. It was a bit based around that. Maybe I'm being unfair. Today, maybe I think a bit of recency bias from me. Today in particular, it felt like if Villa were going to do anything, it was going to come from Diaby or it wasn't going to come at all. That's how I felt.
Yeah, but I just don't think we can be as clear as saying that Villa are predictable going forward, because I don't think they are.
No, you're right. That is probably a bad choice of word from me, because that's only the 3rd game Villa haven't scored under Unai Emery since he's come to the club. So Villa have scored a lot of goals under the manager. Just feels like everything good that we did today came through Diaby. I know we've talked about Luca Dane putting in a couple of crosses, but on the bright, we didn't see much from Ollie today. But when Villa aren't playing well, which they didn't, it's hard for the striker. Whoever's up front is going to struggle to get in the game. McGinn's missed a fairly presentable chance as well. And maybe the midfield just not really ever gaining any control, and the defence looking pretty erratic hasn't helped with the entirety of the performance. But away form in general, other than that Burnley game, Villa have probably lost at 4 of the last 5 of their away games now. I would wager.
Yeah, I think you're up for it. That's 6 maybe actually, but you have to double check that. Sorry, yeah. So I'm sure someone in the comments will tell us otherwise.
Someone will let us know.
Apologies.
4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 anyway.
Yeah. Apologies if we got it wrong, but yeah, I'm not too concerned. I look back to Villa's run at the back end of last season.
That's
and
unbelievable.
It was impressive. So
yeah,
there are minor issues, but there are no major issues at the moment. I'm convinced when Villa take on, just like I said after the Newcastle game, they're going to beat Everton comfortably, and they did. I'm confident that they will go to Crystal Palace and it will be a different game.
Yeah, they should beat Crystal Palace at Villa Park. I would expect that to happen. Leon Bailey's getting mentioned in the comments. Obviously, he had a bit of a strop and walked straight down the tunnel, which is never great to see. I mean, I guess anyone who's getting subbed off after they've been subbed on is never going to be happy. But
no,
it was always the obvious change. In all honesty, he wasn't going to take any of the other attacking players off, so it kind of had to be Leon Bailey. But Lee Murtagh has said, "Why can't Bailey play away from home?" And there is something in that, isn't there? Because at home he tends to have good games. Away, just doesn't. It just gives the ball away. Not really involved. It's just not good, is it?
Yeah, and look, it's a very good point, and thanks for raising it. Because we haven't really mentioned it or discussed it. I'd love to have a really solid answer to explain why, but I honestly don't know. It's not. He scored all of his goals for Villa at Villa Park, hasn't he? In the Premier League.
In the Premier League,
in the Premier League, yeah. So, and it's not even. I'm really struggling to answer it. I'm sorry.
There isn't an answer, is there?
Because like it's not even as if Villa was struggling away from home under Emery initially when he came in. Villa were doing well away from home, weren't they? Actually better away from home, than at home. So it's not as if Bailey's lack of goals away from home or lack of performances away from home coincide with Villa in general performing badly, because that's not the case. It might just be a massive coincidence, and maybe that's a real crap get out from my
no coincidences
part,
in football, Greg. There has to be a
reason.
I mean,
Coutinho was very similar, wasn't there? Remember Coutinho's loan spell at Villa, for example.
Yeah,
and you think excellent at home, really, really good at home, away from home, dreadful. Just did nothing except for that Leeds game where he was all right.
Yeah, don't know. We could do get into the bottom of it though, because it is starting to harm us. I would say I would never accuse him of not working hard or anything like that, because I do think he puts in a shift, Leon Bailey, and he does work hard, and probably a lot of what he does off the ball goes under the radar. But yeah, poor again today. In all honesty, when he came, it's just a bad day all round, and Twitter's never a great place to gauge the mood of the fan base. In all honesty, but I am getting a bit sick of when we win, everyone thinks we're absolutely brilliant, and when we lose, we're terrible in the world's ended, because neither of those things are true. It's just somewhere in the middle is the truth, isn't it?
I mean, that's what. It is, isn't it? And you just can't get too down with defeats. I mean, look, we're all football fans. It's important to enjoy victories, because that's why you watch football, to enjoy it, of course. Absolutely, go as mad as you like when you win a game, but it can't be just every time Villa lose they're shit, because that's not the case.
No,
it's just a game plan didn't quite work today, and okay, the Newcastle game, that was different. I think that was a really, really poor day. But Emery spoke after the game today, and he said we needed to make sure it didn't go that way and we lose by 4 or 5 again. And it's not a massive positive, the fact that Villa kept it to 3, but at least they didn't go that way again. But look, there's plenty of time. The Europa Conference League starts very soon. Get the Crystal Palace game out the way, then it's off to Warsaw. And I think it's exciting time still for Villa. Look, people will move on, I think, from tomorrow and put it as another defeat at Liverpool, but it's not something that's going to linger for a long time. I don't think the international break's going to come at a good time. I think.
Don't you?
I know. I think when you lose a game and speak to many different managers and players and stuff. And once you've lost a game, they're desperate to get back out and fix it because it's always your last game. It's always what you base everything back on. So, internally it'll be hurting for quite a while. And, no doubt some of the players that don't go on international duty will have to go through lots of video footage of what went wrong, which is not the best after a defeat. Let's
No, the one thing I will be worried about on international duty is injuries, because we can't afford to pick up any more injuries at all. Right then, we're going to be looking after. No, we're not going to be looking after anything. That's not what we've done today at all. We're going to be looking at the transfer window. Obviously, that shut a few days ago. But quickly before we do, we're going to hear about NordVPN.
If you guys are getting fed up with missing live football, then our new show sponsor, NordVPN, might be able to help you out. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and smart TV. If you want to watch, let's say, some US content, it allows you to appear like you're in that country. And while you're connected, no one can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. The service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty dab handy. A part of NordVPN supporting 1874, the Aston Villa channel, they have given us an exclusive deal of up to 65% off and 4 months for free, which also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do is go to www.1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details will also be in the description. And as always, we are truly grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight. But if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help us to keep the channel running.
Yep, thank you very much to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor this show. Do check them out if you're looking to be in for the kind of thing that they're offering. Chad, I knew someone was going to do this, and Chad's done it. Greg, Chad, who we both know well, saying we should have kept Cameron Archer. I watched Cameron Archer play yesterday for Sheffield United and just thought, perfect, because he's going to play every single week there. Villa have got the 18 million, which they needed. The way Sheffield United are going to play this season is completely going to suit Cameron Archer. They're not going to have loads of the ball. They need someone like him to put away the chances that they do get, like yesterday. First goal was a lovely, lovely finish, really clever finish from him. In the Villa team, Villa needs something completely different, and my opinion will be that Emery obviously doesn't think that he can do the things that a Villa striker needs to do in terms of all-round game. Watkins has proven that he can be that man, and Duran's probably more physically suited to an Emery team, I would say, than Cameron Archer. So he's one that's moved out. I knew someone was going to say it in the chat, and it's turned out that it was Chad. But would you agree with what I say there?
Yeah, look, I think the Villa fan base are going to be very mixed on Cameron Archer. We're probably going to see him score a fair few goals for Sheffield United, and every time he scores, there's going to be the conversation that Villa should have kept him, and the debate over whether he should have been used more often at Villa. Emery took a good look at him for a long time on different occasions, and it was pretty clear that he didn't think that Cameron Archer was as good as maybe other people do. And because if he did, then he would have stayed. It's as simple as that. He wasn't fully rated because if he was, he would have been around and he would have been used. Villa obviously invested a significant amount of money in Duran, and started to show some promising signs this season. I think coming off the bench and obviously scoring in midweek, and starting to get used to the way of working under Emery in training. He's a very young boy still. He's 19, isn't he? Still, he's very, very young. But there's a lot of potential there. With Archer, clearly he's better than a Championship player. He's ready for the Premier League, I think. It just doesn't feel like he was fully rated at Villa. That's why they let him go. And my personal opinion, I've seen it. I've watched him play for the younger age groups. I've watched him play for England under 21s against tough opponents. I've watched him in the Championship for various clubs that he's on loan. I think he's just ready for the Premier League, and I think, I agree with you. I think Sheffield United's perfect for him. He can get lots of games, and then the opportunities will fall to him, and he'll take a fair few of them. And whether he kicks on any further, only time will tell.
I also think he's not a lone striker. He can't do the things that a lone forward does, like Watkins does. You watched him play yesterday. He's playing up top with Ollie McBurnie. That would be golden for him. Like Ollie
Yeah.
McBurnie will do a lot of the things that he can't do, and Archer will then get on the end of things and tuck the ball into the back of the net, like he did yesterday. It's absolutely perfect for him. I think it's good for Villa to get the fee, and one day maybe he will come back. We don't know, but I think.
And if and sorry to put in, Danny, if you
Please do. I don't know where I was going with it in all honesty.
I mean, if you think of Archer, and this is no disrespect for him because I do really like him as a striker, and I think he's a brilliant finisher. But can you imagine him today if he had played instead of Watkins against Gomez and Matip? Wouldn't have had a sniff, would he?
No. I get that Chad's now saying that he's just worried that if Watkins gets injured, but that's what Duran's there for. Villa were never going to keep Duran and Archer, I don't think. I expected to personally. I thought Duran would go out on loan, but they're never going to keep both of them. They've invested a hell of a lot of money in Duran like less than 12 months ago. So actually it probably makes sense that Duran's the one that sticks around, doesn't it? He just physically, he's a more stereotypical Emery striker and he's a more stereotypical lone striker, I would say.
Yeah. And look, 2 years ago, Archer, with all due respect again, was worth very, very little. Villa have managed him quite well, and fair play to the staff behind the scenes who picked the right loan moves for him and helped get the best out of him. And he's turned from somebody who was, the time he was on loan at Solihull Moors, for example.
It wasn't that long ago.
And it wasn't that long ago. It was 2.5 seasons ago, I think. Nobody was talking about him. He wasn't even rated. There was players like Louis Barry, who was on loan at Stockport, who were more fancied than him at that point. And, even though he was much younger. I think, what's his name? The American guy was rated higher than him. And Vasilev, yeah. So Archer almost came out of nowhere, started scoring all these goals. Villa managed him quite well and turned him into an £18.5 million player. So it's bloody good business in that respect. And if he does turn into a brilliant finisher in the Premier League, Villa have got this buyback option which could be triggered at some point. So I think that I don't know whether they've done the right thing, but clearly Emery thinks he has, so we've got to go with that. He's the guy that watches them every day in training. He's given Archer multiple opportunities and thinks that from the time that he spent with them, he's not quite at it to go and do a job for Villa. And what we'll probably see from time to time is maybe Zaniolo jumping into that role. He's a bit more physical, he's taller, he's obviously got the experience as well. Duran, if he can develop as Villa hope he will. And perhaps in January they might look to buy another striker or loan one.
Yeah. Villa did get Clement Longley in at the end of the window, pure cover for Mings. Dave and myself discussed that in the preview show. It's probably not one that me and you need to go over. It's obvious what he's been bought in for, and that if Tyrone Mings hadn't got injured, Clement Longley wouldn't be playing for Villa now. I think that's a Monchi signing, someone that Monchi knows. I was working deadline day, so I was seeing lots of stuff come in about all the other clubs. There was never anything about Villa signing anyone else. Is that the case, that Villa weren't even really in the market for anyone? Because I got to say, when Archer was sold, I did think, okay, well, if they've done that and Coutinho's going as well, when Dia's injured, Zaniolo's kind of replaced him. They're losing 2 attacking players there who would probably have been on the subs bench. Surely they must be trying for an attacking player of some sort, or think that an opportunity might crop up, but obviously it never did because there's no one there. But were they ever truly in the market for another player?
There were some conversations, around some players in Spain.
Okay.
Don't think it ever got very far down the line. It was the same as the last window in January. There were conversations very close to the window. Actually the day before deadline day and deadline day, Villa looked at a couple of midfielders back in January. Yeah. It was the same when was it? Yes, Friday.
Friday.
Yeah, same Friday. There were a couple of conversations, but just nothing came really close. I was tipped off early in the morning that just to sort of stay alert because something might break and might happen, but it never really got there. So.
No, I know Dave Reid had a feeling that something might happen in the morning as well. So I was thinking, you never know, do you? If an opportunity arises, that they might do something, but it doesn't look like we ever really got close to anything.
Because I mean, from covering Villa for a very long time now, you always get the feel on transfer deadline day whether they're done or not, and it becomes pretty clear early into the day if they're done or not. And other than the last two windows, we were always getting messages that either they were done or something was happening. But this time it was kind of like, just be alert because something might come.
That's even worse. That's more. You'd rather know either way, wouldn't you? That's kind of more annoying, isn't it? Because you don't know what to do with that information.
It was a strange old day, wasn't it? A few movements here and there. Lots of moves that were nearly, just across the board. Lots of moves that sort of you thought were going to go through, didn't, with Paulinho at Bayern, and that was obviously the big high profile one, but there were quite a few others as well, weren't there? And it was, can't remember that many falling through on deadline day like that.
No, there was certainly loads going on because I worked January deadline day as well, and I remember doing that show and thinking, that was really chilled, like not as I was anticipating it at all. But deadline day on Friday was just manic, like we'd prepped for stuff, and then there was literally, we might as well have not bothered doing the prep because we were just things just kept happening and different things get thrown at you, different players that perhaps you weren't going to talk about. So it is what it is with Villa. I think Emery's shown in January if the right player doesn't come along, he'd rather just operate with what he's got, and that worked in January. So you have to keep the faith and trust him again, and maybe Villa will look at something in January, depending on how the season's going and how injuries are shaping up.
Yeah, I do think this window is a little bit different because back in January it was kind of like, well, Villa are going nowhere. There weren't conversations.
I said Villa aren't going to get Europe. I remember saying that.
There were more conversations about Villa still perhaps going down than getting into Europe around Christmas. So, it's crazy that the decision was made quite early into the January window to not spend too much money, to give Emery, to give Emery the one or two players that he wanted. Of course, he got Moreno, didn't he? But if none of the players that he felt were available, then they would wait till the summer and have a little bit more money to spend. And obviously, Torres was the big one for him. And then, Diaby come in a little bit, so kind of under the radar. I mean, he'd been someone he's obviously worked with before and someone that Villa had tracked for a long time on their scouting network and systems anyway. But it wasn't one that we were hearing about in January, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you think Villa have suffered? I mean, obviously, I think it's because we've lost, to be honest, and we've lost quite well. Haven't we? Villa have been beaten quite well by Liverpool. There's a few people just not rating the transfer window at all, but that's nonsense.
Really?
For us, I think that's just utter nonsense, isn't it? But I think the club suffer because they got 3 done with quite well. I certainly got 2 done really early in the window. So then it seems like they're not doing anything for weeks on end, but they've actually just wrapped up their 3 big players way before deadline day, which is the way a proper club operates.
Well, I mean, let's very quickly go through it. Tielemans is an upgrade on what Villa had previously. So he's somebody who knows the Thursday to Sunday routine. He's been in the Premier League for a while. He can come in and fit in for if Luiz and Kamara aren't ever available or out of form. So that's a really good signing for me. Okay, huge wages, but offset by the fact that Villa didn't have to pay a transfer fee. So that's a good deal. Diaby, we've seen, has the potential to really shine in the division. He looks like a game changer. He looks like somebody who can make a real difference. When Villa are behind, or he's really impressed me in all the games that he's played. So he's an improvement on, say, Traore, Philogene, or Bailey, or wingers that Villa have had previously.
Great.
Torres, I think the jury's still out, but we've got to go with the fact that Emery knows him. Emery's worked with him before. If we're looking at what Emery has talked about first and foremost, and okay, I know you want your defenders to defend, but every time Emery talks about Torres, it's because of what he does with the ball and help Villa attack and move forward. So that's a real key part of it. And in that respect, he's great. I think he's got a bit to prove defensively. And I always thought it was a tough area to improve on anyway because Mings and Konsa were so good last year. Now, Torres, I don't think would have played as many minutes as he had now if Mings didn't get an injury. So it's a tough one, that it's very bad luck that Villa that Mings got the injury. How different would Villa have been if Buendia was available? Because although he wasn't starting every game last season, he was a big part of the team that were winning games. And
he'd be playing now.
I think he would, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's not knock the window because I think it's been a decent window. Zaniolo's a bit of a wild card. because we don't know what type of player you're going to get from him, because he was brilliant when he started his career, but has dropped off a little bit, and obviously has a point to prove. That's it. Have I missed anyone? Longley, look, Longley, it's a reactionary signing, isn't it? It's if Mings wasn't injured, as you said earlier, Dan, you wouldn't have him on board. So I think it's a decent window. I think Villa have strengthened their squad. Okay, they've moved on players that we perhaps didn't think would go. Academy graduates that you hoped you would have seen a little bit more of in the Europa Conference League. But I think it's a good squad.
Yeah,
I think it's a good squad. They maybe lack a very good striker to go alongside Watkins, to use more often, and but it's very, very hard to go and bring in a £50 million, £60 million striker and say you're not going to start every game, and you can't sign somebody for. You can't sign somebody who's going to be better than Watkins, because I just don't think Villa can quite find that yet. Don't think they're at that point. You look at Tottenham; they've struggled for so long to find somebody good enough to be a backup to Harry Kane. And I just think it's really difficult, because anyone that was coming to Tottenham previously when Harry Kane was at the club knew they were going to be the second fiddle striker. So Tottenham couldn't go and spend 80 million on a striker, because he wouldn't come first and foremost, because he wouldn't play. So Villa are in a similar position, I think, with Watkins. What they do next with a striker, is interesting. Do they go and get a striker who they class as better than Watkins and see what happens there? But that's the one area I thought they perhaps could have addressed. But then if they had, you're talking at a really, really high spend, aren't you? And you just can't do that now.
No, but there's been a few people criticising Watkins in the comments. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think someone put in there that the Facer says Watkins has got one goal in his last 11 Premier League games, which was against Brighton in the last game of the season. He has had a few runs like that in his Villa career, but what he did in the second half of the season, if you're looking for reasons why we're watching Villa in Europe this season, it's because of Ollie Watkins' goals. You got to have a little bit of respect and be. I think people give him so much undue criticism. A striker's game isn't just about putting the ball in the back of the net. There's lots of other things that Ollie Watkins does that are to the benefit of Aston Villa and to the benefit of those players that play around him. Villa are missing. Ramsey is a big goal threat and he's not there.
Yeah, I forgot
at the moment. They're missing him. He would add a lot of goals to this side, Jacob Ramsey. If he plays a whole season, in Emery side, I would think he would get somewhere near 10 league goals. I would say Ramsey's a good finisher and a good player in transition, and we're missing him.
Yeah, and you're looking at having a Ramsey start for, say, McGinn start for 60 minutes and then bring Ramsey on or something like that.
Well, I think they're both still in Villa's best 11.
Or they both start, regardless of whatever the combination is. They're just lacking a few options, aren't they? If you had Buendia and Mings and Ramsey, it's a different scenario, I think. And I was saying this at the start of the season. It's all good bringing players in, but can they be any better than what Villa already have? And that's always the risk. So
I like Bucket 15, and this is one I thought about actually on deadline day. I've completely lost it. I found it again. I felt like Origi could have been a great bench striker if he hadn't gone to Forest. If Villa were going to go for one, Origi was that. I wouldn't have minded a signing like that, because again he's used to playing in European competition. He's used to being a backup and a player that comes off the bench. I feel like he would have been up for the move, but the problem probably is that he's probably on absolutely huge wages. Did he end up at Forest?
Forest, yeah, he went Forest on loan, I think. Yeah,
he'll be on big wage. He'll have got onto a big wage for Milan on a free transfer, and Forest will be picking up an awful lot of that. Villa won't want to pay someone a 6-figure per week salary to be a backup. They're just not going to do that. They won't feel that's a good distribution of funds when they've worked hard to get back into or be in a reasonable place with FFP as well. So they'll wait for the right kind of forward to come along. David Starr says Watkins' numbers are amongst the best in the league with regards to goals and assists. What more do our fans want? I would completely agree with what David Starr says.
Yeah, and I said this one last week for those who are listening, that there's no Englishman in the Premier League who's contributed to more goals over the last 3 seasons. Obviously, Harry Kane's left now, but James Maddison and Ollie Watkins are the two that are up there, and Ollie Watkins has got 41 goals and 14 assists, I think, in the last 3 years. Maddison's on around about 56, 57 as well, but he's got a lot more assists. So look, over the course of 3 seasons that he's been at the club, he's done Villa pretty good, I think, with his goals.
Yeah, been a superb signing, and may go on to end up being Villa's record Premier League goal scorer. I would say if he's here a few more years. Any contract update, Greg? I ask you this every week.
No, we try and update that in the next few days at the Athletic. That's definitely on my to-do list to check that out. Yeah, so we will update.
Perfect.
As and when we can.
Yeah, let's call it a day then, Greg. Thanks ever so much for joining me on this Sunday night. I've enjoyed talking to you.
I've quite enjoyed this. I mean, look, I know we're on the back of a defeat, but I've quite enjoyed a Sunday. Yeah,
we can look at doing it again. I think at the moment, because obviously we were doing post-match shows before, we're not doing them at the moment. We're in some sponsorship wrangles at the moment, but I do think there's no point me and you doing a podcast on Monday and then doing a post-match show on a Sunday. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for anyone, which is why I'm saying that I don't want to waste everyone's time talking about the same things. I'm trying to combine the two at the moment. So yeah, we'll be back next week with not next week, it'll be the week after next now, when Craig and myself for
we might have one. We might have something up our sleeve.
Something on the agenda.
We've got something that will be very exciting if we can get over the line. Just waiting for a few things to be ticked off, and we'll see. We'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah, if there's any cameramen in the in the chat, or camera women, camera person in the chat, please could you make yourself be known to us, because we might be in the market for a shoot in the coming weeks. So please send over your CVs if you are a good camera operator. We don't have one ever since Dan Rollington left the channel, and ever since he was poached by the Birmingham Mail. We don't have one. So yeah, if you are one, please make yourself known, please. Yep, that does us. It's never great to talk about a defeat, but we've gone through it. If you want to be negative, be negative. That's not really my style. And like I say, I think when we win, the fact is we're still not an absolutely unbelievable, brilliant side like some people say. And when we lose, we're not utter dog like some people make out. I think that's just the way it is. So yeah, international break now, so obviously won't be as much content as normal, but like Greg says, we've got something up our sleeve. So watch out for that. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Try to involve you all as much as I can. I'm not sure how many we've had in live doing this on YouTube, but wherever you are taking in the podcast, whether it be via YouTube or via an audio platform, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Leave a review, please. Yep, anything you can do for us would be much appreciated. That does us. Up the Villa.